careful with my sister because I love her." That's what she told the driver before her best friend got into that silver sedan. She even typed the license plate number into her phone and called police immediately. But police didn't move fast enough. By the time they identified 19-year-old Robin West's body in a burned-out house, the man who killed her had already taken his second victim, then his third, then his fourth. A 15-year-old girl who just moved to America. 4 women, 4 abandoned houses, 4 families begging for help. And every single time, the same man's digital footprint was right there. The same phone number, the same dating profile, the same car. Police even interviewed him. Twice. And he walked away both times. It would take a grieving sister to finally stop him by creating a fake dating profile and luring him to a Panera Bread while detectives watched. This is the story of the women law enforcement didn't protect, and the families who refused to let them be forgotten. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover cases the media ignores, and we need your support to keep telling these stories. Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever heard of this case before? Most people haven't, and that's exactly the problem. New Jersey. Robin West was 19 years old. Her brother called her Ra. To her friends, she was sister, family, twin. At Sanctuary Church of the Open Door in West Philadelphia, she led the Sunday choir. Robin had a big presence, vibrant, high-spirited, always laughing. Her 20th birthday was coming up on September 5th. She'd posted photos on Facebook of the white dress she planned to wear. She couldn't wait to celebrate. End of August 2016, Robin and her friend Pernisha took a trip from Philadelphia to New Jersey. They checked into a budget motel. After a few nights, they ran out of cash, so they came up with a plan to make a few dollars. Night of August 31st, Robin and Pernisha found themselves walking near NY Avenue in Newark, a neighborhood full of vacant homes. Robin was wearing a red Nike hat, a lacy black shirt, and black shorts. They hadn't been there long when a silver sedan pulled up. The driver offered to pay Robin for sex. Pernisha acted quick, typed the license plate number into her phone and saved it. Before the car pulled away, she leaned forward and told him, quote, "Be careful with my sister because I love her." Those would be the last words she'd say to Robin alive, because Robin got into that car, and she never came back. The next day, Pernisha couldn't get in contact with her. She called police immediately, gave them the license plate number, told them exactly who Robin left with. But even with that information, the response was slow. What nobody knew was that just hours after Robin got into that car, firefighters in Orange responded to a house fire on Lakeside Avenue. When they got inside, they found human remains. The fire had burned so hot that one investigator later said it was the most destroyed body he'd ever encountered. For days, those remains sat unidentified while Robin's family waited for answers. September 7th, a week after Robin disappeared, a detective finally ran that license plate number. It came back to a young man from Orange, New Jersey, Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Detectives showed him Robin's photo. Wheeler Weaver admitted he'd been with her that night, said he'd offered her a ride, suggested she stay in an abandoned house and dropped her off. He even showed police an abandoned house. But it wasn't the one that had burned. Because there was no physical evidence tying him to her disappearance at that moment, Wheeler Weaver walked away, free. September 13th, more than 2 weeks after the fire, DNA confirmed the body was Robin West. Her family was devastated. That white birthday dress would never be worn. But investigators still had no idea this was connected to anything larger. They had no idea this was only the beginning. Think about that for a second. Police had the license plate. They interviewed the suspect, and they let him walk away. Comment below. What would you have done differently if you were investigating this case? Because what happens next is going to make you even more frustrated. While Robin's family processed their grief, another family just miles away was beginning their own nightmare. October 22, 2016. Joanne Brown was 33 years old. Her family called her Billy Joe. She struggled with her mental health and had been using sex work to support herself, but her family never stopped believing she deserved better. That afternoon, Joanne was in Newark with friends near Popeyes on Avon Avenue. Normally, Joanne had a system. Whenever she left with someone, she always called her friend Amina. She'd say who she was with, where she was going, when she'd be back. It was a lifeline. But that afternoon, another friend needed to make an urgent call. Joanne handed her phone over. Moments later, a car pulled up. Joanne talked briefly with the driver before getting inside. Without her phone, she had no way to make her usual safety call. But a few minutes later, around 1:30 p.m., she borrowed the driver's phone and called Amina. Quick call, just long enough to say she'd left with someone and would check in soon. That second call never came. At 3:09 p.m., Amina's phone rang. It was the number Joanne had called from. She picked up immediately. "Is this London?" she asked. Silence. Then the call disconnected. Amina called back. Again and again. Each time the phone rang and no one answered. After searching everywhere and getting no sign of Joanne, Amina reported her friend missing. But Joanne's history worked against her. Officers noted her background, her struggles. Instead of sounding an alarm, they treated her disappearance like something temporary. Something she'd chosen. No urgent searches, no press releases, no canvassing. And all the while, her body was lying inside an abandoned house on Highland Avenue, waiting to be found. If this is making you angry, good. It should. These women deserved better. Show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to this channel. We're not letting these stories get buried. Drop a comment and tell me, why do you think cases like Joanne's get ignored? Let's talk about it. While Joanne's friends made call after call searching for her, another young woman just a few towns away had no idea she was moving toward the same threat. 20-year-old Sarah Butler grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, in a close, loving family. She was a dancer, smart, creative, full of ambition. In 2016, she was a sophomore at New Jersey City University studying psychology. But when she moved on campus, Sarah struggled to make connections. Often felt lonely. November 2016. Thanksgiving was just days away. First day of Thanksgiving break, Sarah's mom drove to Jersey City to pick her up. Sarah was happy to be going home. Later that evening, Sarah asked if she could borrow the family's blue Dodge minivan. She had her hair pulled into a high ponytail with a red extension added. Before she left, she told her mom she was going to meet a friend. Sarah was responsible. She always came home when she said she would. But that night, Sarah didn't come back. When she didn't answer calls or texts, her family reported her missing and launched their own search. The community rallied, made flyers, knocked on doors. Then a friend of Sarah's located the minivan. It had been abandoned behind an old factory. Police arrived at the scene. So did Sarah's sister and her friend Lima. Officers began looking over the vehicle, but they didn't see what was right in front of them. It was Sarah's sister who noticed it first. A small flash of red on the ground near the driver's side. A red hair extension. The same red hair Sarah had been wearing. Before she could speak, Lima followed her eyes. Then Lima screamed. Finding that red hair extension changed everything. Sarah's sister and Lima knew they couldn't sit around waiting for updates. So they began their own investigation. They drove straight home and opened Sarah's laptop. Lima knew her password. They logged into her email, her Facebook, searching for anything that could explain where she'd gone. Another friend named Samantha joined them. Then they opened Sarah's tagged account. Tagged was a dating app popular in the 2010s. Easy for users to hide their identities, create fake profiles. Right away, they saw a recent conversation. Messages exchanged with a user named Lil Yacht Rock. It was one of the last interactions Sarah had before she disappeared. Samantha created a brand new tagged profile using someone else's photo and a fake name. She sent Lil Yacht Rock a simple thumbs up. Then they waited. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're subscribed. This next part is going to blow your mind. And comment below, do you think Sarah's family did the right thing by investigating on their own? Should they have waited for police? Let me know your thoughts. Over the next few days, the women practically lived at Montclair Police Department. They were standing inside the station on November 26th when Samantha's tagged account lit up with a message. It was Lil Yacht Rock. He offered cash for sex. Said his name was Taj, insisted they meet quickly. Everything about the messages felt creepy. As the conversation escalated into a phone call, Samantha put the man on speaker. Sarah's sister grabbed her phone and quietly recorded the entire conversation. They were still inside the police department, doing the detective work themselves. Samantha agreed to meet him at a Panera Bread in Montclair, just a mile from the station. The moment she hung up, the women rushed to officers and told them they'd arrange the meeting. Police sent 2 detectives to the meeting spot. When the man behind the tagged profile walked into Panera, detectives confronted him. He identified himself as Khalil Wheeler Weaver, the same man who'd been interviewed about Robin West's disappearance months earlier. He didn't resist, simply agreed to go with them to police headquarters. At that moment, detectives were still treating Sarah as a missing person. They didn't know she was already dead. Their conversation with him wasn't recorded. He wasn't restrained. He was free to leave at any time. Inside the station, he admitted he was the person behind the tagged username Lil Yacht Rock. He explained he'd created the account using an email address investigators would never forget: pimpkillerghostYahoo.com. When detectives asked about Sarah, he told a story. Said he'd met her because he recognized her from New Jersey City University. Claimed he contacted her to see if she was using the app to, quote-unquote, solicit money for sex. He said Sarah had picked him up, they drove around, she picked up another man, and then she dropped him off around 8:17 p.m. He said he never saw her again. At that moment, detectives still only saw him as a witness, not a danger, not a predator. December 1st, 2016. Detectives tracking Sarah's phone followed the signal to Eagle Rock Reservation, a wooded area overlooking New York City's skyline. That afternoon, officers searching the area came across something on the ground just off one of the trails. A body. The location was secluded, hidden. A short time later, the body was identified as 20-year-old Sarah Butler. The autopsy confirmed the cause of death was strangulation. December 5th, 4 days after Sarah was found. Construction workers walked into an abandoned house on Highland Avenue in Orange. They were there to repair a roof. But what they found instead was the body of Joanne Brown, missing since October. Her body was on the staircase landing. A jacket was wrapped around her face and neck. Duct tape covered her mouth and lower face. The medical examiner ruled her cause of death: mechanical asphyxiation. Phone records showed that on the day Joanne disappeared, the same number that contacted Sarah Butler had also called Joanne's friend Amina and Joanne herself multiple times. Location data placed that phone near the restaurant where she was last seen, and then at the abandoned house where her body was found. And it wasn't just Joanne. Investigators followed those same digital footprints back even further, to 19-year-old Robin West. Wheeler Weaver had been there the whole time. Before Sarah, before Joanne, he was the owner of the car Robin got into that night. Police had spoken to him. But even after her body was identified, he was not investigated or named a suspect. He continued his killing spree. And had it not been for the actions of Sarah's sister and friends, who knows how long it would have gone on. When detectives laid the timeline side by side, the phone records, the travel patterns, the victim's last known movements, the connections became undeniable. 3 women, 3 disappearances, 3 lives lost, all tied to the same man. After Wheeler Weaver was in custody, detectives dug deeper into his digital history. Hidden in Sarah's phone were conversations showing she'd crossed paths with him days before she disappeared. On November 19th, 3 days before she vanished, Sarah and the man behind the tagged profile had already been in contact. The messages were blunt. He asked, quote, "Do you want to make money?" Followed with, "Sex for money?" Sarah responded cautiously. Ultimately, she replied $500. Sarah asked him to pay her first. He told her he'd pay once they got to his place. And then, in a moment that now feels haunting, Sarah tried to lighten the mood. She texted, quote, "You're not a serial killer, right? LMAO." He wrote back, "No." Sarah replied, "Okay, cool." The meeting never happened that night. She backed out, telling him later she got really nervous. But on November 21st, the day before she disappeared, he texted her again. "What's up?" Sarah apologized for canceling plans. When police executed search warrants on his home and car, they found gloves, black clothing, multiple phones. In his vehicle, wire ties, pepper spray, and a body fluid cleanup kit. Phone records placed Wheeler Weaver's phone near Eagle Rock Reservation between 10:38 p.m. and 12:43 a.m. on November 22nd and 23rd, the same remote area where Sarah had been found. The next morning, someone using his phone searched for ways to remove an Apple ID and factory reset an iPhone. In 2017, Khalil Wheeler Weaver was indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder. By the time his case went to trial in October 2019, prosecutors had built a devastating timeline supported by phone records, surveillance footage, digital messages, DNA, and discoveries made inside the abandoned houses. But the most powerful evidence came from the women who lived through encounters with him. One of those women was Tiffany Taylor. Tiffany took the stand and told the jury how she'd met the same man months earlier, after Robin and Joanne were killed, but before Sarah's murder. She described how he attacked her, restrained her, threatened her life, and how she managed to escape. Her testimony gave jurors a chilling look at the violence he was capable of. The trial lasted 8 weeks. The jury convicted Khalil Wheeler Weaver on multiple counts, including the murders of Sarah Butler, Robin West, and Joanne Brown, as well as the attempted murder and assault of Tiffany Taylor. He was sentenced to 160 years in prison. But the story doesn't end there. In 2019, 3 years after his arrest, construction workers discovered human remains in a wooded area in West Orange. Those remains were eventually identified as 15-year-old Ma Dumbia. Ma had disappeared back in October 2016, right in the middle of Wheeler Weaver's series of attacks. She was a teenager who'd recently moved to the United States from Guinea, living with her family in Newark, adjusting to her new life. She should have been safe. But investigators learned that just like his other victims, Ma had been contacted through the Tagged app. Digital evidence showed Wheeler Weaver reached out to her on October 7th, offering her money. Hours later, he messaged her again, giving her his phone number, the same number he used with his other victims. Not long after, he searched Google for directions to her apartment complex. then drove directly to the area. His phone's location data showed a chilling path from Ma's neighborhood to the secluded spot where her remains were eventually recovered. Just like the others, she'd been strangled. On March 31, 2022, prosecutors charged Khalil Wheeler Weaver with a fourth murder, the killing of Ma Dumbia, a 15-year-old child. Let that sink in. If this case is new to you, share this video. These stories need to be told. And comment below. What do you think should happen to predators who target children? I want to hear from you. When this story finally came to an end, Khalil Wheeler Weaver had been convicted of murdering Robin West, Joanne Brown, and Sarah Butler, and later charged with killing 15-year-old Ma Dumbia. 4 young women whose lives were cut short. 4 families left to grieve daughters, sisters, and friends they loved. And 4 cases that should have never required this much pain, pressure, or personal investigation to be taken seriously. These women were not invisible. They were loved. They had families who searched, who begged for help, who refused to believe their daughters simply walked away. But again and again their fears were brushed aside. Robin West was written off because she wasn't from the area, and because of assumptions about her lifestyle, even though her friend had given police a license plate number immediately. Joanne Brown was dismissed before she was ever truly searched for, even though her friend explained she always called, always checked in. Ma Dumbia was just 15 years old, a child, and yet her disappearance didn't trigger the kind of response it should have. And even Sarah Butler, a college student with a tight-knit family, struggled to get quick and decisive action in those critical early hours. Her family had to launch their own investigation, had to find the van themselves, had to log into her laptop and create a fake profile to catch her killer. The most common thread wasn't their background. It wasn't their neighborhood. It wasn't their choices. It was the way their disappearances were treated. Robin, Joanne, Sarah, and Ma deserved protection long before investigators understood the danger. They deserved the kind of urgency that too often is reserved only for certain victims. Their cases remind us of how much damage is done when assumptions replace action, when bias replaces urgency, and when the most vulnerable women are the easiest to ignore. Every one of them mattered. Every one of them had family and friends waiting for them, and none of them should have slipped through the cracks. Their stories deserved to be told, not because of the man who hurt them, but because of the world that failed to protect them, and because of the families who refused to stop fighting for justice when no one else was listening. Robin West was 19 years old. She loved to sing. She was counting down to her 20th birthday. Joanne Brown was 33. Her family called her Billy Joe. Ma Dumbia was 15. She'd just moved to America. Sarah Butler was 20. She was a dancer, a psychology student. They were loved, they are remembered, they mattered. May Robin West, Joanne Brown, Ma Dumbia, and Sarah Butler rest in peace. These women's stories matter. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for honoring their memory by listening. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this video so more people know their names. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What case should I cover next? What stories aren't being told? Let's keep this conversation going. These women deserve to be remembered. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.